Hello, everyone, and welcome to Yapisode 5 of It's Not You, It's Me podcast. I am DS Choi, your host, and on this Yapisode, I just yap about dating culture and some of my own experiences. And just so you know, when I recorded this, I had just gotten back from traveling and yapping away. And so, without further ado, here we go. You know, maybe I should actually start. I don't know how many episodes it will take before I decide to structure certain things, but this episode I am thinking about sharing. Well, there's a lot of thoughts that is on my mind, and so as I'm yapping, part of it's like, what are the things I want to yap about related to relationships? And one of the things I see often is people getting tired of dating, right? Dating fatigue. I don't know. I don't know exactly the term for it. I mean, dating app fatigue is a real thing, and it's interesting to see how the experience is very different between men and women. For men, if you're not like top, I don't know, 10%, then your likelihood of getting matches is much lower. All the women flock um, to the top percent of men. And I mean, similarly for women, it's the range is larger. So maybe not the top 10% women, but the top 10% women might get all the men, but men's interest, if that makes sense, like sending a like. But there's a lot more women will get a lot more likes in general than men, and I don't know if that has to do with women being a lot more picky. There could be a variety of reasons why, but for women, let's say that I don't know, an average woman will get 100 likes, and if they have to look through 100 profiles, let's say like I don't know, 100 likes a day. I don't even know how it works. 100 likes a week, even let's just say let's be conservative. Let's say 100 likes a week, right? Then and I mean, if you could definitely like ask some of your friends how many likes they get, some of your girlfriends, and they if they're on the app, I guess, and they'll probably tell you how many likes they get. That's kind of it's ridiculously overwhelming sometimes. If you're actually trying to look for a decent partner, and you're trying to give every profile a genuine consideration, that's a lot of work. So yeah, conservatively, let's say that if you have 100 matches a week, then you're spending, I don't know, 15, let's say 100 divided by 7, 105 divided by 7, or yeah, is 30. No, I can't do math. 15. It's 15. So imagine you're going through 15 profiles a day, and you spend maybe a minute looking through the entire profile, right? And I think that's okay, right? That part is not the hard part. I think the hard part is trying to maintain conversation, because if someone liked you and you're looking through the people who liked your profile, when you like them, you're choosing to initiate conversation with them. And oftentimes, women are not the ones to initiate conversation. Often, it's usually the men. Unless the woman is really, really interested in a certain guy, they might start a conversation. But usually, it's the men that, because women will like and wait for the men to initiate. And so there's a lot of interaction that's happening between the two. And that dynamic changes how we interact. And so oftentimes women have a lot of chat rooms open. Often, obviously, it's not for everybody, and they have to engage in multiple conversations. And texting as a form of communication can be difficult. Um, it's like you're trying to juggle a lot of conversation, and if you want to get deep, it's hard to write a lot of information over text. So personally, this I'm not speaking for women. Personally, for me, I prefer phone calls rather than texting. Of course, I can text, but I find myself if I'm trying to get to know someone, I'm spending a lot of time texting over a phone. So I much if I could, if the app was on my PC or something, it'd be much easier to type it on a keyboard. But I have to type it on my phone. That is annoying for me personally. If I have to write, like it's fine for short things, right? But I don't want like short conversations. Sure, I can do it, absolutely, but I'm also the person who's not glued on my phone because I have a PC. My eyes are on my PC, not my phone. And so I also operate very differently. Maybe I'm not the norm, right? But for women, let's say for women, because they want to get to know someone, rather than texting all these people, maybe they would rather either just meet them in person, just have a regular date, get to talk to them then, or because they don't want to waste time at a dinner date that with someone that they don't like, maybe they'll ask for a short conversation, right? Like they might ask to have a phone call, but uh, people are often very try to be very polite, right? So let's say a date's not going well. You don't necessarily just hang up on someone. You definitely could. If a date's not going well, you could be like, "This is not working out. I'm gonna have to call it a night. Um, thank you, goodbye." Right? Very cold, simple, just end the conversation. You can't. So that would be rude. Hopefully, you could have a conversation that will eventually lead to a stopping point. Be like, we've talked enough. It seems like you can just say it from your perspective. You don't have to tell. You don't have to convince them. You can just like, from my perspective, you're not what I'm looking for, um, and here's the reasons why. And you can they can defend themselves, or it doesn't really matter. If you made a decision, you can easily say no, thank you, goodbye, and that's okay. And I think it was the episode 0. I talk about how when you go on a date, you typically want to be considerate and give people an out if they're not enjoying the date. And so what women will, well, this jokes, but women should do this. I would agree is that they should ask a friend to call in the middle of a date if they feel like they need an out, right? And I think men will catch on typically. Um, there's a lot of, I guess, I think if people treated each other more, I don't know if frank is the better way to put it. I think there's a lot of people who are afraid to be selfish. I don't even know if I want to put it that way. I use the word selfish because I think a lot of people are very considerate, and that often gets them in awkward situations where they can't say no. Um, People have a hard time uh, denying people because that I think that forces confrontation, and it really depends on your personality. But again, from my perspective, if you go on a date, you want to make them feel comfortable. And so even when you have conversations, for me, I ask them if they would like to text, if I match with someone on an app, like to text. And I tend to not match with a lot of women, and I think that's perfectly okay. Um, I ask them for if they would like a conversation. I do let them know that I would much prefer a phone call, just because I don't like checking my phone all the time for texts. I can text, and it's really interesting because uh, some people will just ghost me then and there, right? Like they won't respond, um, and that's okay too. It's a matter of I think for me, it's you offer what you prefer, and if they don't like it, that's fine, right? If they don't want to engage, that's fine. They could have a bajillion reasons why, and any of them could suffice. No hard feelings, right? I just want to get to know you. I would like to do it through a phone call. And if you don't want to give out your phone number, we can do it through a different app. If you don't want to give it information at all, completely okay. We can move on, no problem. And otherwise, they might say, "Oh, can we start with texting first to see how it goes?" I'm like, "Sure, I can do that." And you don't pressure people to do things they don't want to do, but you also hold your ground in what you can tolerate. And so um, sometimes depending on how the texting goes. So for example, right, some people so back in the day when we had instant messaging, right, that was our texting, but that was again over the internet, right? Because we had limited texting in our phone plans. We had limited minutes and limited texting. I forget how much texting you get per month. Um, and so some people would text early in the month, and then at the end of the month, they were like, "Call me instead" or something because I don't have any more texts. So we had to be creative. But overall, um, when I text with people and when you're chatting with them, sometimes you feel like they're already on their phones. They just responded to you. And so when you type something back, you expect an immediate response. And that's tough sometimes because they generally might be busy. But if you're wanting a back-to-back chatting conversation then and there, depending on what the other person is doing and the timing of it, they might not be able to. And so there is this I don't know if unspoken, unexpected dance that's going on in terms of I don't know what the expectations are for how frequent we text. There's other rules people talk about like don't double text and all these things, but people may genuinely be busy. And I think a lot of people, I mean, silence even when you're talking is uncomfortable. Like imagine I'm gonna stop for like I mean I don't know 5 seconds. Let's say from now 5 seconds. That's about 5 seconds right there, right? Imagine if I double that to 10 seconds, right? And so if you're waiting for a text with, especially if you're interested in someone, waiting is an arduous amount of time. And people don't like that silence, especially if you're anxious, insecure. You're wanting validation. You're wanting responses. You don't like to be left hanging. And it's okay if people feel that way. It's just a matter of how do you regulate that. And so being upfront being practicing being upfront is very important, I would say. And so, if you don't like text, I remember someone who said they didn't want a phone call. I met them in person, and they said they don't want to do phone calls because they're actually afraid of the phone ringing. And this is not like a physical, like a landline. It's their cell phone. They don't like it ringing, and they're afraid to pick it up. I didn't really ask further into what developed that because I asked briefly. I was just like, how come, right? Um, and they're like, I don't know, I just don't like picking up phone calls. And so I don't know if they didn't want to go into it or anything like that, but or perhaps they weren't even interested in me. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, right? It's just like for me with that information, I can tell myself, oh, like I don't think this relationship's gonna work, right? Because I really enjoy phone calls, especially if we're not physically together, right? And like in the same place, right? And if we're to be dating, because one, I just like a dedicated time to be present to have a phone call. Um, so if they're not interested in or they're afraid of picking up the phone, it's most likely not going to work. And as I don't know, as insignificant as they may seem, it really affects the communication of the dynamic that you have and how do you build a relationship. Because in the future going on, I'm just like, if you're afraid to pick up a phone call and I need you to pick up the phone, I assume you'll pick it up knowing that it's me. But part of me is just like, that just sounds weird. And of course, if they want to delve into it, sure, we can get into that. But if they don't want to, then part of me is just like, well, let it go. I think it's weird. And uh, but I can further inquire, or they can ghost. I forget even what happened to that relationship. I think we basically ended. We were texting, and then she was into books, and so I remember I think we gave book titles that we were interested in reading, and it just kind of ended there. Um, that's fine. There's another person who likes to text but doesn't like to be on the phone, and that happens. And I remember this person, this different girl. Um, she would be on the phone, but she wouldn't be very present. And so it seemed like she was doing other things while she was on the phone. And I remember her telling me that it was unnatural for her to be doing that, like where to be stay on the phone. And so I found myself like, oh, like she's not fully present. And again, I think it's just modes of communication. So whether it's texting or whether it's phone calls, people can have their preferences. And so I think it's just important to express your preferences and you can adjust if you'd like. Now, where am I going with this? Um, this is a very, how do you describe it? Communication styles can be different and it's okay. Like you don't, people have their preferences. That is fine. Um, I think it's a matter of how much do you bend over backwards to accommodate someone. And everyone should, I don't know if should is the right word. Everyone has a tolerance in which they can handle. And so if we switch the topic, I don't know if the topic's the right way to describe it. If we're no longer talking about differences in communication, we talk about differences in values. And so this is where I'm talking about being upfront. And I think this is very interesting. If you're interested in someone, what often happens, especially if you're pursuing someone, what happens is you're more likely to compromise on a value and not speak up for yourself or stand up for what you want to accommodate the other person. Now, if it's a value that's important to you, that gets a little worrisome. Now, if it's a value that's like something that you don't really care about. For example, if you don't really care about where to eat, right, and the other person chooses, that's fine. Like you didn't really care. You weren't craving anything. We can go anywhere, right? It's my food example, and that's fine. But let's say that you have I don't know, you value being vegetarian, right? Or vegan, whatever it may be. Or maybe you're allergic. Maybe that's a better word to put. Maybe you're allergic to seafood, right? And so if the other partner wants to go to a seafood place, uh, I would hope that they would consider you and your allergy to seafood, right? You can't just say, oh, like it's okay to go just to satisfy your partner. I would hope that the restaurant that you choose or somewhere you go out to eat or eat at home, wherever it is, you would have an alternative option that is very satisfactory for the both of you, right? Um, and so obviously, if you go vegetarian or like vegan, like the criteria gets perhaps could get difficult, and so these are conversations people must have. And if it's something very important to you, you should bring it up, right? It's a conversation that needs to be had. Otherwise, you will feel if they ignore these values that you have, or more importantly, if you yourself have been ignoring these values to maintain a relationship, you're not going to be happy. Um, and you might build resentment and you won't even know why. And you might express it towards your partner. But again, with the name of this podcast, it's not you, it's me, right? Like, as in, I'm the problem. If I have a problem with not speaking up, I'm the one causing the issues. If I get upset because I didn't speak up, I'm causing the issues, right? If I didn't voice my values and they're walking all over it because I didn't speak up about it, that's my fault. And I think that's a take that people have a hard time understanding. Um, and to be very fair, I think there's some people who are very, very, very conflict averse, confrontation avoidant, right? And so they don't want to cause any issues, any reason for arguments. And what is more important though, right? Like I think some people may have a preference towards one direction, but I think it's a skill that people need to have a clear communication, such that they can have the life that they desire and build the type of the relationships that they want. So rather than being, I don't know if blindside is the right word. Whether sometimes people find themselves in like, why am I still in this relationship? And that's a very good question. And I think that comes with awareness. Um, Being able to voice your values and clearly communicate it when something doesn't go your way, right? I wish I had more examples. I'm sure there's plenty of examples. So I think I've talked. Maybe it was in a different episode. I don't remember now. This is why the yapping is bad. But I think I mentioned before that love in the English language is very broad. Love can mean a lot of things, and funny enough, dating can mean a lot of things. And so that's something that you need to define. And so, for example, the reason I talk about love, maybe I'll come back to that. Maybe defining dating could be a better example first, right? And so, when you're dating someone, what does that even mean, right? Does that mean you're just talking to them? Are you exclusive? We have these different stages of dating that people may call. Um, and I think because it's so, I don't know, broad, you could, I think that also needs to be communicated. So, for example, on a dating app, I am, if someone wants to get more serious or the conversation seems to be flowing really well, if I'm talking to other people, I let them know, right? Like from my end, I am a very upfront, honest, transparent person because I would want my partner to do the same for me, right? Have the most information to them, make the best information for them, or did I say best information? Make the best decision for themselves. And I can only be honest so that they themselves could have, like, I want them to succeed in their own uh, dating decisions, right? To make a good decision, they need all that information. And so by me revealing it, I would hope that they would reciprocate. And if they don't reciprocate, then I don't want them to be, I don't want to be with them, right? And so being clear that if I'm talking with other women on the dating apps, like I'm chatting with other people, they should know. And typically, honestly, I don't think anyone has said they are upset about that. They're like, okay, no, no, thank you for letting me know. And they may say they too may be talking to other people, or they come to a point where they'll tell me they're not talking to anybody else, that they would like to just talk with me only. Like they're not talking to anyone else on the app, and they're not planning to. And so I think that is honestly the next stage. So first is the talking stage, or early, I don't know, matching stage. You can call it whatever you want, but you can you just how you express it, right? You let them know that we're not they're like, so what the girl will have told me is they're not talking to anybody else. So that's the next step that we're getting towards, is exclusivity, right? That we're not talking to anybody else. But exclusivity also might have a connotation that you've already become boyfriend girlfriend. Not necessarily. And so again, this is the nuance in which we might use the same words but be meaning different things. And so we've got to be clear, right? No confusions. We don't want any confusions. Confusions leave everyone miserable. Um, I was going to say confusion is often a tactic that people use to build attraction. And funny enough, it works very well, but I don't think it's conducive to a healthy relationship. Uh, if you're attracted to confusion, um, perhaps you may want to seek professional mental health support. um, anyways, I digress. So, exclusivity, the way I define that to be exclusive talking stage might be the better way to put it, right? I am only talking to you, and the other person's only talking to me. And the point of that is to determine if and when we would like to become actually official boyfriend girlfriend, right? And so these are all the parts of dating that we need to communicate, because we have I think people will call it the DTR, defining the relationship, right? But when you're confused or unsure where you're going, but if you have clear, if you can communicate clearly that that's what's happening. So it's different when people lie, because obviously when people lie, then there's nothing you can do with that information. It's untrustworthy, and when you discover it, you should probably stop talking to them, because uh, trust cannot be built upon lies, right? And you don't want to be in a relationship with someone who is uh, insincere. Well, insincere is a little different too, but I don't. It's not as malicious as deceitful. But if they're not telling the whole truth, if they're telling half truth, that's also bad, right? That means they're hiding things, and that's not the kind of relationship you want to be in. And so, having clear communication, clear stances where you stand, it makes it easier to navigate the relationship. And so, beyond the exclusive talking stage, then you talk about, oh, like when would you be comfortable to pursue being exclusive boyfriend girl, like official boyfriend girlfriend, or that's a cisgender model, but whatever. Officially dating that this is my significant other, right? Um, then I think it becomes very clear whether it's like you're not questioning what are we, right? And hopefully during that time of exclusive talking stage, you will really, really, really dig deep into the values that are important to you, so that you don't compromise. And it sucks because maybe you really like them, but they have a value that you don't agree with. So one thing that happened to me is I was really, really vibing with somebody. Again, most of my talking stages and relationships are long distance. I won't say most. I, many of them. And perhaps all of them. If you hear episode 0, maybe there's a conversation in that, or maybe let's say episode 1. Either way, not important. As I'm yapping away, um, I remember talking to this girl. We talked about a lot of important values, and then she said, like, so she wanted. I wanted to talk. We texted like crazy, and then she wanted to uh, meet in person before giving her phone number out. But she didn't realize how long distance we were. Oh, long distance meaning about 2 hour drive. And so I told her, I don't want to see you in person until we have more serious talks over the phone. And so she's like, oh, I didn't know you were that far away or city wise. And so she's like, I can make an exception. So we exchanged numbers. We had a phone call. The phone call was great. We connected. It was amazing. And we talked, and then even through the texts, we were getting very talked about a lot of the important values that were in our way. And so we met in person, and we had a very good time. Um, and I thought everything was going well until and then later she texted me. She was just like, because I'm taking this relationship seriously, I was talking with my friend and really going through my values. And I realized that I don't want kids. That's what she told me. It's like, I realized before, because she was undecided before. And she's like, I realized after talking and kind of figuring things out with my friend, because I feel that this relationship can get serious. I have to really consider, especially at this age, about having kids. I have decided that I'm not interested in having kids. And before, we had already talked about kids, and she's like, it'll probably be okay, right? Like, I want kids, and she's just like, if they come, they'll come. And so that revelation uh, was sad, right? It's just like, oh, we were vibing, but it didn't work out, and I was very, very thankful that she shared that with me early on in the relationship, rather than trying to make it work and eventually not working out later and having emotional attachment and terrible, terrible heartache, right? And so it sucked because I thought we were working out very well, and it didn't work out, and I have to respect that decision clearly, right? Because I think children is a non-negotiable between two people. I think it creates way, way, way too much hardship if that happens. Obviously, there's very, very unique outlier cases where people may change their minds, but especially at my age of mid 30s, I think by that time, if you haven't decided, especially if you're a woman, it's tough, right? And so you let it go and you move on. And if she didn't, if I didn't move on from her, then I wouldn't be able to meet someone new, right? And so that's an example of a value that needs to be considered and communicated. But I think the next step of it is, how sure are you of your own values? I think people kind of toss around like, what are you looking for someone in a relationship? And it's not always clear. People wave their hands, they're like, oh, I want someone who's caring. I want someone who's kind, someone who's compassionate, someone who's financially stable. Like the money does may not really matter in terms of how much, as long as people are pursuing um, a good, healthy financial stability, right? And that can be discussed too. But what's really important is, what does that look like, right? For each of these values, it's like, oh, maybe like I want someone who can be a good dad. What are the characteristics that they have? What does it look like? What do you imagine it to be? Um, so that if you have a clear picture of what those things are, when people aren't those things, I think you can be very intentional about bringing that issue up and whether that will continue to be a problem. And again, it's tough when people, I think the reason why dating is so hard, just in general, even before dating apps, dating is just really hard because sometimes it's hypothetical. People don't know what they're going to be like in certain situations. For example, this is something that's happened too. It's just like people, while they're dating, maybe they're married. Same thing. Like, it doesn't really matter what stage of dating it is. You're interested in someone romantically, and your significant other's parent passes away. Something happens. Whether there's an accident, whether there's sickness, passes away. Like, how does your partner deal with grief? Right? Immense grief. Like, that's not something that you want to. That I mean, death of a loved one is not something you want anyone to experience, but it happens, and how someone deals with it is really important, right? Um, but that's not something you can prep for. That's not something you can really simulate. And so some information is really hard to find. And so ideally you would find other situations, other stressful situations or things that happen in life in which you could see them and see how they behave. High pressure situations is one of them. For example, people will talk about traveling together because you might be in uncomfortable circumstances uh, that are undesirable, and thus you may be short tempered with each other, short worded, terse, whatever definitions and words you want to throw around. People may not. It shows up. You can see what it's like when they're frustrated. There's other things where how do they? I mean, one of the easy ones, how they treat service workers, right? Um, People taking your to-go orders, your drive-throughs, waiters, waitresses. I don't know, even online product customer service. How do they treat these people? How do they treat your friends? How do they treat strangers? How do they treat homeless people? Um, Various things, right? There's definitely ways that you can experience life with someone to see what their character is like and how they treat people. If that's a value that's important to you. If you hate people and you don't want to be around them, that might be a different story, right? If you both hate on service workers together, I would judge you personally, but I guess if it works for you, great. And I would hope that you would stay away from society as much as possible. um, but depending on what values you have, you want to see how that is lived out and demonstrated, right? Because typically, if they're trying, if you're in the early stages of a relationship, you really want to, you end up wanting to please each other. So whether you're sacrificing your own values or you tend to over demonstrate uh, the partner's desired value. For example, religion is another thing, right? Like so. Um, some people might say, "Oh, like it's okay if we don't share the same religion," and later discover, "Oh, it actually matters a lot." People have to be very honest with what that looks like, and I think sometimes it takes experience to realize, "Oh, shoot, I should have considered this before, but now I'm paying the price for not considering it before." Right, and so sometimes it's life experiences that teach you. Um, and everyone is in a different stage in their journey of life, different stage in their understanding of what it takes to be in a relationship, what it takes to be ready for a relationship. I'm not saying everyone needs to be 100% ready. I do think that there are things that people can consider and be aware of and mindful of before they jump into a relationship, such that they can increase their chances of finding a person who they can build a healthy relationship with, right? Um, and for sure. There are for sure cases in which you both grow together in the relationship, right? Like you both aren't the people that you want to be. Uh, you both have flaws that are very glaring and apparent, and you go to couples therapy or other things that really work and build a strong relationship. Those can indeed happen. Ideally, the idea of all these advice and awareness and I don't know, marriage readiness, relationship readiness, it all has to do with reducing pain, right? Um, and the way I look at it is we can easily avoid pain if we're focused on looking for what we're actually care about, what we're looking for, right? Like it's like as a food example, uh, if I want, I don't know, let's say I want a good burger, right? And I want to, I don't know, avoid my seafood allergy. Like versus look like rather than choosing a place to eat, avoiding seafood, it's much easier to pick a place based on the burger you want to eat, right? And so in a similar way in a relationship, rather than avoiding pain, find things that you want in the relationship and look for them and seek them and you will find them. And if you find those things and those are the core values, like the most important things in your in what you would like in a partner, you're at a great place to start. Um, because once that's stabilized, then you can figure out whether the other inconveniences or other flaws perhaps or other mismatches, whether you call them red flags or other things, they can be examined after your main ones have been aligned. Your main values have been aligned. And so I remember, I forget which podcast it was. It was a while back. There's someone who was describing their, I think it was a triple A model. Um, first is first A is availability. So it's not necessarily something I agree with, but something I was like, oh, it's a very interesting way of looking at things. And so take it as you will. But the first A was availability, right? Because if they're taken, don't look at them, right? Don't be a homewrecker, right? Make sure they're available. That's the first A, right? I think that's a very easy one, right? And the second one was alignment. And alignment had to do with values. What values are we aligned in our life? that make our life um, coherent, peaceful. Um, I don't know, comfortable is the right word, but comfy, right? Like someone you can see that you can blend well with. And then the third was attraction. Attraction came last, right? And so the reason I bring this triple A up was because, I think people just try to seek attraction first, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? I think sparks are wonderful, right? Great feelings to have, as long as they don't lead you astray. Another A word, don't lead you astray. And we want, I personally fully want people to have amazing relationships, right? And unfortunately, attraction is the one that often leads people astray. And that's a very interesting topic to say the least. I think attraction is definitely has its place, but I do also fully believe attraction can be developed and created. I have personally experienced that myself with one of my girlfriends that I've had in the past. I was not attracted to them whatsoever in the beginning, but over time, I had developed attraction. And that was crazy because I never thought that would be possible, but it happened. And so I do think there is possibility there. And so I would say um, don't write people off because you're not attracted to them. But I would say also evaluate how important attraction is to you. For example, let's say you've been dating a lot to the people that you've been attracted to. Are those people, how have those people, have those relationships turned out in the end, right? Like, be very, I don't know, critically reflective of your past dating experiences, right? And so in those cases, it's nice if you've had dating experiences. I think that I'm coming up and finding more and more people who have never dated, and it's also very interesting because it's not because they don't want to be in a relationship; it's because uh, they are hyper aware of red flags, and so whether it's in themselves or in others, and so some people will say, "I'm working on myself." And I don't think I'm ready to date. That's why I've been single for such a long time. And other people would say that there's no one who attracts me, uh, and the people that I'm attracted to, or sorry, yeah, maybe I should say it the other way. Um, I'm not attracted to anyone that I think is good for me. I'm always attracted to people who I think will not be good partners for me. And so I'm glad that they have the awareness to see that, but uh, like nothing changes. It's just like one of those things where like they're aware, but nothing's been done. And so that's also a hard case to deal with because in a relationship, you may point out something that doesn't sit well with you, because, whether it's a minor value, but it's something still that but still bothers. For example, like for me, like I am realizing how much more important cleanliness is, but it's not like crazy important. I would like to think I'm fairly average in the level of cleanliness, and depending on other levels, I don't know what the average actually is. And so some by someone else's standard, I'm dirty. By other standards, I might be clean, right? And so it's kind of minor because we have to adjust to everyone anyway, right? Um, there's things that we'll always have to adjust with people who are different from us, and that's okay. I think part of it is that's part of the learning process, how to grow together, build a relationship together. Um, but some things may become more important to you than you thought. And so you kind of need those experiences. And sometimes you can get that experience. For example, living with someone, like if you live with a roommate, you can figure things out, right? Um, you will quickly realize there are things that is important to you that the other person is not doesn't seem to be as important, and that bothers you. And so that's something you could bring up, right? These are things that you learn through experience. Of course, the experience that you have with your significant other may be very, very different. And again, the one thing I would say to caution against is compromising your own values. For example, if it's cleanliness, compromising how clean the other person is, and just saying that that'll be okay because that may later build resentment, right? Like you want things to be cleaner, but they're not, and you knew that fully going into the relationship. And so, in that sense, some people blame themselves for making that decision, or they will project and blame the other person for not being clean enough, even though they knew fully well their level of cleanliness going into it. And so um, having good conversations, bringing things up, letting people know. Um, it takes a mental load. Even the smallest things can become a very, very big thorn in your side. And so I'm not saying make mountains out of molehills, What I am saying is be communicative, be aware, because especially when two people like each other, they're gonna behave in ways that will accommodate the other person. They will both. I mean, hopefully they'll be considerate, right? They'll be caring for one another, and after a certain point of comfortability, it's not even a word. After they reach a certain level of stability in the relationship, they I wouldn't necessarily say true colors as heavy as that sounds. I would definitely say that people will start demonstrating what they prefer naturally versus uh, what they how they have been trying to accommodate for. It's kind of like being a host at a house, right? Like you're typically very caring and considerate if you're hosting someone. I don't know if that's a more Eastern value thing, hospitality. Um, I think Southern America also has very amazing hospitality. I've met very hospitable people everywhere, and so it just really depends, I guess, the person you are or what you grew up with. But either way, there's phrases like don't be like rotting fish in someone's house. And I think I forget what proverb that was, and whether that was in the Bible or somewhere else. There's plenty of sayings that people say like don't overstay your welcome, right? Because the hosts can only be considerate for you for so long, and you want to get to a point, especially with your partner, if you're living together, that you want to get to a point where you can be honest and real with each other as soon as possible, but also grow if needed to adjust. Maybe that's maybe that's a value that people I was gonna say underestimate. If I use if like it's low key like the best is perhaps I don't even know if I agree with it, but is it adaptability? People who are willing to maybe maybe I say that it's a high value because I have it. I don't have a lot of strong opinions about certain things. Maybe that's I do have strong opinions about a few things, but not about a lot of things. I'm fairly very chill, and I am someone who tends to adapt a lot to people because I don't have a strong desire. And so, for an easy example again, to eat, I am an eat to live. I eat whatever. I can eat the same thing, whatever, to eat. But perhaps my partner is live to eat. They must eat something delicious to them every meal, ideally, or else they'll be more cranky, right? Whatever it is. And so, because I don't have a strong preference for eating, I don't know if that's the right way to put it. I don't have a strong preference to choose where I eat, as long as it's good enough. Then I can easily adapt to my partner's desire to eat somewhere good, right? It doesn't bother me too much. That being said, it might be a little different in terms of like uh, 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 how you spend, how much money you spend, like the value of what you're eating, because I can feel that way. Like, I'm not gonna go to like $100 per person restaurant every meal with my partner just because they want to eat something good, right? Because I value how much, like how I spend money is a value that needs to be discussed and talked about, right? And so in that same way, uh, adapting to someone else's wants and needs is something to think about. One can be, for example, allergies in terms of food, adapting to that, or a food preference. Um, if pickiness bothers you, because I mean, I think food's such a great example. Um, but either way, uh, as I'm yapping, I'm losing my thoughts. It's been about 43 minutes, and so I think I mean, it's been a very good yap session. I've had a great time yapping about nonsense, but very important. Maybe I shouldn't say it's nonsense. Very important things to consider, and so I'll probably just end it here, right? Call it an end of a episode. Thank you for listening. If you come to this point, um, maybe I'll have more structured things planned in the future. Ooh, one of the things I got to talk about in the future, maybe I'll remember, maybe I won't, is are there topics that you would like for me to talk about? If you have, or one thing for sure, if there's anything that any of the any part of the episode that you really liked, please tag the timestamp in your comments. I would love that. I think that'd be definitely helpful too. But other than that, I hope you all are having a wonderful day, wonderful time. And I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye bye.